An Indian fast casual brand based out of Washington, D.C. We currently operate 4 locations in the area with a 5th one on the way. So the idea of Rasa really starts with both of our parents. So both my dad and Sahil's dad immigrated to the U.S. From India in the year 1985. Our dads, after working for the same restaurateur for 5 or 6 years, decided in 1991 to actually branch out on their own and open their first restaurant together, which is called Bombay Bistro, based in Rockville, Maryland. We still have that restaurant. It's 31 years old. So we were quite literally born into the restaurant business. We learned how to walk inside Bombay Bistro and spent a lot of our childhood there. And that's really where the idea of Rasa stems from. So we both went off to college and actually both entered the corporate world after college. So after about 4 or 5 years, we both were kind of unfulfilled in those careers. And we really saw how far Indian culture had come in the past 25 years that we have lived, here. So in 2015, we decided, we had this idea back in high school to start an Indian fast casual. I think creating a fast casual and make the food more accessible to more people. And so we both quit our jobs, moved back home into our parents' childhood houses, and began the process of trying to start Rasa. We spent 6 to 8 months just inside the kitchen at our father's restaurants and kind of starting from the ground up. I think having that fundamental cooking knowledge really helped, because when it came time for us to start crafting the menu for Rasa, it was a really unique and collaborative process with my father. And so it's been cool to actually be able to now work with my dad again in this new capacity as we kind of develop new menu items and collaborate together. When we were first thinking about where we wanted to open up this restaurant, DC made a lot of sense for us. We grew up here. Our dads own restaurants here. Opening a restaurant is very difficult, and just being an entrepreneur and then also opening a restaurant comes with its fair share of challenges, and you kind of have to wear a million different hats. In the beginning, we both were there every day, all day. For the first month, our parents were there, our sisters. It was like all hands on deck. My girlfriend would leave her job and come at 6 p.m. and then next thing I know, she's making mango lassi, or my mom is rolling out naan bread. Sahil's dad is working the cash register. It was like a full family affair. But as we started to get, our feet underneath us, we were able to hire a manager and just really introduce more people to our food. When we were first trying to think of the name, we wanted something simple, easy to pronounce, and something that captured the essence of what we were doing. The way we came up with Rasa is if you combine our names, Rahul and Sahil, you get Rasa. And so we end up Googling that and found that the word Rasa has a much deeper meaning. So in Sanskrit, it means essence or getting to the core of something. And in Indian spiritual practice, there's this idea of the 9 essential human emotions, or the 9 rasas. And so what we've tried to do with Rasa is kind of embody all those different emotions through color. We really also wanted to embody the country of India. And as much as we are serving Indian food, and we're Indian both by our families, we also were both born here in the U.S. And so we don't want to shy away from that as well. And so how can we create a place which is both Indian but also American and kind of represents what we like? And how can we create a place that people feel not intimidated to enter, but think, oh wow, this is a cool place, and it happens to serve Indian food, and what we really wanted to try to do with Rasa is, how do we connect people through food? We live in really divisive times right now. Oftentimes the one thing which people can agree upon is a plate of good food. But that's kind of our goal, is how do we connect cultures and communities through food. Yeah, that's kind of the story of Rasa. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. We'll be taking questions on social media, but I have a list that I'm going to be going through to start. So, thanks for tuning in and watching that video that shared a fairly good insight into the beginning of Rasa. So, starting with the first question, can you share the inspiration behind starting Rasa and what motivated you to enter the fast casual restaurant industry? So, as I shared in that video, the real inspiration behind Rasa started when both Sahil and I were young children, because both of our fathers were in the restaurant industry. And, when we would be in elementary school, all throughout high school and in college, oftentimes, our friends or colleagues would ask what our parents do. And, back then in the early 90s, my response was that my dad's a chef. He owns an Indian restaurant. And in the early 90s in the US, a lot of that was met with curiosity and skepticism. So people were like, I've never had that food before, or I hear everything is spicy, or, I don't like curry. I don't want to have to run to the bathroom afterwards. And we would hear all sorts of kind of nonsense. And it really confused us. So we would bring these friends throughout the years to our father's restaurants. And, I think both Sahil and I shared that experience thousands of times from when we were young kids all throughout college, of introducing people to Indian food and to Indian culture by bringing them to our father's restaurants. And so that was really the inspiration behind Rasa, was how do we, open people's minds through food. And, when we really tried to further dissect that issue of, why don't more people know about Indian food? Why haven't more people tried Indian food? And even we met and interviewed a lot of people who had tried it and did like it. But when we asked them how often did they eat Indian food, that's where we found the disparity. And oftentimes they would tell us that, look, I like Indian food, but the Indian restaurant I know is in a random shopping center. It's not where I live or where I work, so it's inconvenient. Or, I only feel comfortable going with my Indian friend because the menu has 200 items on it and I don't understand what any of them mean. For people who've never, traveled outside of the US, walking into an Indian restaurant can feel like a completely foreign and almost scary atmosphere to some, with Indian music playing, which they're unfamiliar with, Taj Mahal paintings on the wall, white tablecloth, different things like that. And so all these different kind of barriers to accessibility really led us to pursue opening a fast casual restaurant, where we felt that it would be more accessible to people to find a location where people worked and where they lived, have all the food in kind of an open kitchen that removed the entire mystery behind the cuisine. People can see the food being cooked in the kitchen, and then they can select their items on the menu and see them right in front of their eyes to make their entrees. And so that was kind of the main reason in terms of why we entered the fast casual restaurant industry. Second question is, Rasa is known for its unique approach to Indian cuisine. How did you and your co-founder Sahil Rahman come up with the concept for the restaurant? So yeah, on this, I kind of touched on this in the video, but Sahil and I, we both were born here in the U.S. With Indian heritage. Both of our families, are from India, and our parents moved here in the mid '80s, and so we really wanted to create a place that was true to us. And how do we make a place that was welcoming and inviting, that shared that Indian hospitality, but still was also true to the flavors that we grew up with and that we grew up loving. And so, we really tried to encompass that when we started Rasa. From the exterior, we actually have one of our family's handcraft giant wooden doors that we fell in love with on our travels to India in visiting Rajasthan. And so all of our 5 locations have a door that was handcrafted and made in India. That's, a 10-12 foot door that welcomes you into the restaurant. And, what we've done is, instead of, ordering and sitting down and ordering off of a menu where you don't necessarily understand all the items on the menu, we have everything kind of open right in front of the guest. And so that kind of gives each guest the visibility where they're able to see every single item that's going into their meal. And, really helps give new customers or people who are unfamiliar with Indian food the confidence that, okay, this is something that I can try. I see white rice, let me try that. I see chicken, okay, I know spinach, and so on and so forth, to like make their meal. Next question is, what challenges did you face when establishing Rasa, and how did you overcome them in the competitive restaurant industry? So, when Sahil and I both had this idea, we both were 24 years old. We just quit our corporate jobs. And, to be honest, we were quite naive at the time. We thought, okay, we're going to quit our jobs January 2015. We'll have this restaurant open by November of the same year. And we were quick to learn it was much harder than that. And so I think the like first and foremost issue was just in terms of funding, and also just figuring out exactly what we wanted to create. And so what we kind of did in the first 5 or 6 months is we spent a lot of time diving into what we wanted Rasa to be. How do we want people to feel when they, interacted with our restaurant, when they entered the restaurant, when they tried our food? What do we want? What do we want them to like leave with? What's unique about the hospitality industry is that, unlike a retail store where if you go, and you buy a piece of clothing and you leave with that clothing, when you visit a restaurant, the only thing that you're left with is the memory of that experience. And so we spent a lot of time really diving into how do we want people to feel, what flavors we want to have, how do we want the restaurant to like look, and the design, and what do we want to create. We also traveled to India. We traveled to a lot of other different restaurants and fast casuals, and really spent a long time kind of crafting who we wanted to be. At that point, we began the fundraising process, which was quite challenging. To be honest, we were both 24 years old. We were trying to open a restaurant. Oftentimes people know, hey, like that's so hard to open a restaurant. Don't most restaurants fail? Is kind of the go-to almost saying. And so it was an uphill battle for us to raise the funding for the first restaurant. It took almost 1 year for us to actually raise the funding. But during that, experience, we pretty much went out to anyone and everyone that we knew. We would reach out to old colleagues from our prior careers. We reached out to friends of our fathers, or customers of our fathers who had been dining and know the quality of the food that our parents had been putting out for the past 30 years. And then just going to different networking events and going anywhere and everywhere that we thought we could find anyone with some kind of money that was willing to take a bet on two young guys. And so, that was the like first big challenge, was just, are we going to be able to fundraise enough money to be able to start this restaurant? And we wouldn't have been able to start or do anything without both of our fathers, without their name, without their restaurants. We were able to host tastings for potential investors at their restaurants, and that was just so instrumental in helping us get off the ground. Other challenges that we faced in the beginning was finding the right location. DC is a pretty competitive marketplace. It's a really transient city, has a good amount of wealth, and so there's a lot of national brands that want to open restaurants in DC, along with local restaurant owners who want to open new restaurants or new concepts. And so it's a pretty competitive landscape. And even for that, even when we sometimes found a location that we wanted, the landlord oftentimes wasn't willing to take a bet on us. They viewed us as a risky investment. And so what we had to do to eventually get our first location, which is in the Navy Yard neighborhood of Washington, D.C., next to the baseball stadium, is we quite literally had to write a handwritten letter to one of the principals of the development company which owned the land, and tell our story and who we were, and how they were creating this brand new building and trying to attract the
millennial clientele. And, if they wanted to do that, they needed a cool hit brand run by millennials that could do that. And so us, actually writing that letter really helped us secure that like first lease. And I think once people saw the first restaurant location come to life, they're able to experience what the restaurant felt like and what the food tasted like. It became significantly easier moving forward as we opened our second, third, fourth, and fifth locations in terms of finding real estate. We had, people approaching us saying, "Hey, we really like your restaurant. Do you want to open in this city or, in this state?" And so it was really cool to kind of see that come together. And then, the one other challenge that we had was that we were a small team. It was just Sahil and myself. We couldn't afford any other, corporate team members, a marketing manager or a director of operations or any of that. And so as a result, in order for us to like spread the word before we opened, the biggest thing which we did is we just popped up at any event that we could and sample our food. So for the year leading up to the restaurant opening, we popped up at different charity events around DC and gave small samples of food. And each event had anywhere from, 300 to 1,000 people who sampled our food. And so I think that did make a big difference in trying to start to create the hype and the press for our concept before we opened the first location at the end of 2017. The next question is, Rasa places a strong emphasis on fresh, healthy, and locally sourced ingredients. How do you maintain these principles while still offering affordable fast casual options? Yeah, so I think this is something which is part of who we are since the beginning. We wanted to make sure that from day one we were proud to serve the food in our restaurant, and that means no artificial ingredients, no food coloring, and nothing that we didn't feel to ourselves that like we would put into our own bodies. Why should we give this to our guests? And so I think maintaining that kind of strong line in the sand in the beginning has definitely helped as we maintain that as a pillar of our company. But really, it's about finding the right purveyors and vendors and establishing strong relationships with them from the beginning. We've had a number of vendors who we've worked with over the past several years now, who we were upfront with them, like, look, this is what we need. If sweet potato is in season and it's coming from Virginia, then we want that. At the same time, we can't afford the high end pricing that maybe some fine dining restaurants can afford because of the prices that we're charging. So how can we get creative in getting the products that we need at a price that we can afford? And it was definitely a challenge during COVID, as it was tough to get a number of ingredients, and with rising costs, it definitely is a concern for a lot of fast casual restaurants. And there's been times when we've had to remove items from the menu because we weren't happy with the integrity of the product or the like price. And what we did is we just were really transparent with our guests as well and say, look, we really love jackfruit, but at this time it's too expensive for us to carry because it's coming from India, and with COVID and the shipping and all that, it's not feasible for us to get. But as soon as we are able to get it back, it'll be back on the menu. And I think just being transparent with the guests has allowed us to kind of to navigate that. So yeah. The next question is, Indian cuisine is incredibly diverse. How did you decide on the specific menu offerings at Rasa, and how do you balance tradition with innovation in your dishes? Yeah, so I mean, this is so true that India is such a unique country that you go 10 miles in any direction, and the dialect spoken is different, the way people dress is different, and the food is different. And so on our menu, we've done our best job with what we have in terms of trying to craft flavors and take menu items from different parts of the country. Now, it's almost impossible to encompass the entire country, but we have a split between northern and southern Indian food, and kind of where that comes from is my dad, Chef Vinod, is from Kerala in the southernmost state of India. So we have a lot of that inspiration on some of our dishes, like our turmeric ginger shrimp, and some of our chutneys. We have a tamarind ginger chutney, so on and so forth. And then also balancing like what are people in the U.S. familiar with, and the type of Indian food that people are most familiar with in the U.S. today, and that is changing, is Northern Indian food, which is the butter chicken, chicken tikka makhni, tandoori chicken, paneer, saag paneer, garlic naan, different things like that. And so what we've tried to do is kind of take a few different dishes from around the country, from north, south, east, west, and at the same time, we still also want to have a limited menu because as I mentioned earlier, one of the fears of people trying Indian food was that it was too much for them to try to figure out because there was too many options. And so we've tried to keep it as simple as we can, in really, taking menu items or dishes from different parts of the country that we've grown up with and that like we love. And in terms of presenting that to this audience, oftentimes we can offer the exact same authentic Indian dish, but all we're doing is changing the name. So instead of calling our spinach vegetable dish, saag makai, where someone who is not from India has no idea what that means, we call it sautéed spinach. Exact same dish, same recipe, but just with a different name. And so we've tried to take that approach throughout the menu, where one of our chutneys that I mentioned earlier, the tamarind ginger chutney, is actually one of my grandmother's recipes, my father's mom. And so in Kerala, where she's from, it's called injapuli. So if we put injapuli on the menu, guests would be like, I don't know what that is. I've never heard that word before. I don't even know how to pronounce it. And rather than call it that, we just called it tamarind ginger chutney, exact same recipe. And so, we've tried to take that approach to make our food more accessible. At the same time, we've tried to take Indian techniques in terms of cooking and apply them to items that are readily available here, which may not be readily available in India. An example of this is, in the wintertime, we often do a seasonal dish, which is tamarind glazed Brussels sprouts. So Brussels sprouts are not native to India by any means, but at the same time, they are readily accessible here in the wintertime, and they are quite popular. And so we took Indian style preparation of how we marinate it and cook the Brussels sprouts, and applied it to a vegetable that is not necessarily common in India. So it still has that Indian flavor that people who are familiar with that food find familiar to them, but at the same time it's using an ingredient which is not necessarily Indian. So that's kind of how we've straddled balancing the authentic flavors while still trying to innovate on that. Another example is chai, which is an Indian spiced tea, is a common hot beverage that is had throughout the country, and even popularized by big coffee companies nowadays like Starbucks. And so what we've tried to do is continue try to pushing that forward. And so we have a dessert that we do on the menu, which is a soft serve ice cream, and we now have it as a masala chai spiced soft serve ice cream. And so people have started to hear about chai. They go to Starbucks, they order a chai tea, and now they can get it in a vegan soft serve form. And so we've continued to try to push the envelope in that way of how do we take Indian flavors and spices and give them to people in things that they are familiar with, like soft serve ice cream. Going on to the next question, can you share some of the strategies and marketing approaches you've used to build and grow the Rasa brand? Yeah, so I think the first approach that we took was quite simply what I had mentioned earlier, which was just popping up at as many different events that we could. Or how can we get in front of the most number of people with the least amount of effort? And so, we would go to an event that would be 3 hours long. It would be for a charity in DC. There would be 50 different restaurants all having tasting tables. We would be one of them, and there would be an audience of 1,000 hungry, excited people to meet. And we would have small samples of our food and have them try it, and then have some marketing materials that we could hand out to them, whether it was flyers or coupons or coming soon, so on and so forth. So we've always found that one of the best strategies is just getting our food in people's mouths. Once we opened the first restaurant, something that we continue to like do today is stress the importance of sampling. People are unfamiliar with Indian food. They're nervous trying something that they're not familiar with, and all it takes is one of our team members to kind of be the tour guide. And so we often have someone standing outside some of our restaurants on a nice day, just like today it is here in Washington, D.C., and they will sample something like a cold mango lassi, which is a mango yogurt smoothie, and something that most people will love. And once they try that first sip or that first bite, it often leads for them to walk in and like try the restaurant. Other marketing things that we've done in the past, obviously social media has a big influence. So we have partnered with a number of local food influencers, and that's definitely helped because it goes out to all of their audiences. So we have them come into the restaurant, they try a number of dishes, record a video, and then that goes out to all of their followers. So all these kind of different strategies have worked for us so far. I think the last thing is that we have engaged with a public relations firm or a PR company since our founding, and so that's really kind of helped us get in front of the press as well, from the local outlets that we have here in Washington, D.C. to some of the more national outlets like Eater or Thrillist and different things like that. So all those things have definitely helped. But I'll be honest that this is something that we continue to see as a challenge in this kind of ever-changing world. Is how do you continue to stay relevant? How do you continue to stay in front of people with a limited budget compared to some of the huger national brands? And so we actually just last week hired a director of brand and marketing, and we want her to be able to focus on bringing more people into our restaurants and getting our food into more people's mouths. So something that we continue to learn on each and every day, and not something that we necessarily have figured out completely as we continue to evolve and grow. The next question is, Rasa has expanded to multiple locations. What were the key factors that contributed to your restaurant's growth and success? So I think this is this question, there's a number of key factors. I think one thing which we've tried to do is which is really key is it all starts with your team and who you hire and how you treat them. And so I think we would not be able to have 5 locations, not be able to be where we are today without the hardworking people who have worked with us for the past several years. And I think it 100% starts with every one of our team members, and all the work that they put in and day out. And so we've really tried to welcome them and into our Rasa family. The second thing is that we have tried to also continue to engage with all of our guests. If you see either myself or Sahil in one of our restaurants, we're really trying to interact with all of our guests, talk to them, get to know them, ask them about their experience, and really make them feel like they're entering our own home. There's this idea of like Indian hospitality where you go to someone's house in India, and even if you're not hungry or you're not thirsty, they're bringing out the whole suite. They're giving you soft drinks, alcoholic drinks, tea, coffee, food. Even if you say no, thank you, it's going to keep coming. And so, how do you make people feel warm and welcome, like they are coming into their own friend's home? And so we tried to kind of recreate that experience for our guests as well. And then last thing is, I think Indian food has a lot of complexity, and we've tried to keep it simple for our team and easy to execute. So everything that we do in our restaurant, when we are first implementing it, we think about, is this scalable? Because having a really difficult dish, which only a very high skilled chef can execute consistently, probably doesn't make sense for our type of restaurant. We have 5 locations right now. They're all in the DC area, but as we continue to grow and expand, we can't be in every restaurant every single day physically. And so we've tried to really create menu items, but also training materials that keep things simple for our team, so they're actually able to execute. Because one of the key factors with any restaurant, but especially with fast casual restaurants, is consistency. And so, I think having that consistent experience, that consistent food every single time you come is kind of a staple of what makes a good fast casual great. Next question: how do you handle the challenges of staffing and training in the fast casual restaurant industry, especially in the context of preparing complex and flavorful Indian dishes? So, I kind of just touched on this, but, everyone, across the country has been having, challenges with staffing and training across the restaurant industry, especially during and after COVID, where a lot of people actually left the industry. And, I think it comes down to a few simple things. Is one, we treat all of our employees fairly. We pay them, a livable wage. All of our employees make tips, so they actually, starting out, make a pretty healthy wage compared to some other fast casual restaurants, and so that allows us to attract better talent, which we're happy to pay for. Then, we offer benefits, health benefits, eye, vision, dental, and, for every one of our team members, and then trying to create a fun and exciting environment for them. So we have team outings and team trainings that we try to do that help bring the whole team together. But in terms of training, it's still something that we are continuing to evolve. By no means do we have a comprehensive training plan at 5 locations. We've opened up 4 locations since 2020, and so we're kind of flying the plane while we're building it. And just recently, we did bring on a new chief operating officer who has a lot of experience growing different restaurant brands, and I think he's coming in and is now starting to finally build a lot of these different systems and training materials that will really continue to help our team grow. But right now, in order for us to get to this point, a lot of the training has just been side-by-side training with our team, whether starting from myself and the general manager of a certain location, and then that general manager standing side by side with their own team members, training and teaching. The next question is, sustainability is a growing concern in the restaurant industry. What steps has Rasa taken to reduce its environmental impact and promote sustainability? So, this issue is pretty important to both Sahil and I. We're seeing the effects of climate change all across the world, with all the different natural disasters that are happening, what seems like almost on a weekly basis. from floods to earthquakes to droughts, and it's just unbelievable how everything is happening, and how can we be a force that is promoting sustainability, but also trying to reduce our environmental impact. And so, I think we've done a number of things, and we can continue to do a number of things to try and help this push forward. And so, the first thing is that all of our stores are wind powered. So we're not using the grid in that way to promote sustainability. Second thing is that for a fast casual restaurant, you're serving a large number of guests throughout the day. At least half the guests, if not more, are taking the food to go. But a lot of guests are also eating inside the restaurant. And so what we've done is, for all guests dining inside the restaurant, we actually have reusable plateware, silverware, and glassware, so that we're not using single-use items, which just end up going in the trash. But actually, guests who dine with us will get an actual plate or bowl, actual silverware and glassware. So that's one step. The second step is that all of our to-go, disposables are compostable as well. So all of our bowls, our lids, our cups, our cutlery is all compostable. And so we really tried to make sure that everything that you get from Rasa, you can be environmentally proud of those items. And I think the last thing in terms of sustainability is about trying to source locally. So when things are out of season in the DC area, if we were to get it sent on a truck from California, that's not necessarily being environmentally sustainable. And so, we, especially with a lot of our produce, when it is available locally, that's where we are getting it from. Next question. Rasa has received positive reviews for its customer experience. Can you share some insights into how you've created a welcoming and enjoyable dining atmosphere for your patrons? Yeah, so for this, I kind of touched on this earlier, but we really wanted people to feel like we were welcoming them into our own homes. And how do we create a warm, vibrant dining atmosphere that really embodies that? And so that first starts with the actual physical space. And so it starts with the kinds of tones we use on the walls, and the colors. It's the type of tables, and is it wood or is it steel? A lot of fast casual restaurants are only looking for throughput. They just want people to kind of go in, and they want them to eat, and they want them to leave. And that was not what we wanted to do. We didn't like those kind of environments where we felt that we were being rushed, or it was a really cold, uninviting atmosphere. And so what we've done is we also wanted to capture the vibrancy of the color and the food of India. So all of our restaurants have really bright, vibrant dining rooms. Our logo, Rasa, is made up of a colorful logo to kind of embody the vibrancy of India. And we've kind of shared that through a number of different aspects with our restaurants. So I mentioned first and foremost, we have a giant, brightly colored door as kind of the gateway or the entrance at our front door. Once you enter, we have a series of kind of colored strings that kind of run across the ceiling at each of our restaurants that kind of guide you through the space as you enter. We have different paintings on the walls that are handcrafted by Sahil's aunt, and each painting represents the idea of the 9 rasas. So I had touched on this in the video. The word rasa means essence, or getting to the core of something. In Indian spiritual practice, there's also this idea of the 9 rasas, or the 9 essential human emotions. And in order to live a whole life, or a wholesome life, the idea is not to embody one emotion over the other. So, these emotions are anger, sadness, fear, etc. And so in order to live a whole life, you kind of have to embody that all these emotions together will make you whole, and not one emotion is better than the other. And so Sahil's Aunt actually depicted this idea through paint. And so as you enter each of our 5 locations, you will see different versions and variations of these paintings, and they're all brightly colored and with different designs. And so for that, I think it really creates a warm and inviting atmosphere. We have in 4 of our locations, we have playful kind of swings at the entrance for guests to dine inside. And so we want it to be a place where people can come and grab a quick lunch if they're on the go, but also a place where they can sit down and have a meal and have a conversation with the people that they're with or with the person next to them. One of the goals of Rasa is how do we connect people together, and how can we use food as that vehicle to bring people from different cultures, different backgrounds together, using food and using food as that vehicle. For someone who maybe had never tried Indian food before, they could come to Rasa, they could try the food, they could enjoy that experience. Now maybe they're going to go try Ethiopian food because that was another food that they didn't know anything about. And after now trying Indian food, now maybe their minds are more open to trying other cuisines or other cultures, or maybe taking a trip to another country. So that's kind of what we've tried to do from like that standpoint. Next question is, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the restaurant industry faced significant challenges. How did Rasa adapt to these challenges? What lessons have you learned from this experience? So the COVID-19 pandemic was, quite a crazy time. We're still kind of facing some of the aftershocks or after effects in the DC area. But when COVID first hit Washington, D.C. in March 2020, we were actually getting ready to open our second location. Restaurant was fully built. We had a team hired. They'd already been training for a few weeks. And we went in for the health inspection to open up this restaurant. And we were told, hey, we're not doing any new health inspections because we're fully focused on the pandemic. And so we were kind of in this strange scramble places where, the entire world kind of locked down. And we still had to pay rent. We still had employees who had families to feed. We still needed to feed ourselves. So what were we going to do? And the first thing that came to Sahil and my head is, look, there's a lot of people who need meals right now. There are medical workers who are working crazy hours, who are pretty much living at the hospital, putting their lives on the line on a day-to-day basis to try to save others. There are, schools are closed. There are school children who go to school so that they can get a meal for themselves or their families. Now with schools closed, how are they going to get any meals? And, we quickly said, you know what, we have food. We're able to produce high quality food, high volume of food relatively easily compared to some other restaurants. So we went out to the press and to anyone that would listen and said, hey, if you're a medical worker or a school children, feel free to come to Rasa to get a free meal on us. And Sahil and I both booked ourselves and look, we'll figure out how to pay for this or cover the cost. But right now I think it's important for us to kind of let's all help each other in this kind of crazy time. And how can we be a force of good in such a challenging kind of scary time? And we had a number of friends reaching out to us saying, hey, I love what you guys are doing for the medical workers, for the first responders, for the school children. Is there any way that I can help donate or help towards the cause? And so that led us to create our own fundraiser called Feed the District, where we were able to raise over $80,000 from the community, from different people that we knew ourselves, from some of our landlords, from some of our investors, which was hugely helpful. And that allowed us to feed thousands and tens of thousands of people over the course of the pandemic. Separately, we also partnered with a local chef here in Washington, D.C. in his nonprofit World Central Kitchen, because we had a second restaurant that was fully built out, and we reached out to them and said, hey, we know that you guys set up and serve meals during natural disasters. We have the kitchen and we have the capability to produce a large number of meals, but we don't necessarily know who needs them. And so that began a partnership called Restaurants for America, where we actually were one of the pilot restaurants in the entire country to basically work with them on. They knew where people needed food, whether it was homeless shelters, people struggling with food insecurity, schools, hospitals, but they didn't have the ability to produce all those meals themselves. At the same time, restaurants were struggling. That people were locked inside their homes, so people were not dining out. And so, basically, how this program worked is World Central Kitchen would buy meals from restaurants, and then the meals would go towards the people who were suffering from food insecurity during this time. And that was a big partnership for us, which really helped us, adapt and live through the pandemic, where we did over 100,000 meals with World Central Kitchen. And not only that, but giving all these free meals away and serving all these meals also gave our team a sense of purpose. People were really scared in this time. They were, they weren't sure what to believe. Nothing like this had ever happened in their lifetime, and they still needed a job. They still needed to pay for their families, and so it gave them a sense of purpose to come to work, and they felt proud that yes, they are coming to work, but they're doing something which is helping others, and that really helped our team kind of stick together throughout the pandemic. And so that was really a harrowing experience for all of us, but we live to fight another day. Next question: are there any exciting future plans or expansions in the works for Rasa that you can share with us? At the time that the video was shot, we had 4 restaurants with one under construction. We are now in a place where this past April, we did open our 5th location in Maryland. And so now we are currently operating 5 locations. There's no immediate plans. In the short term, we have grown to 5 locations in 5 years. And so we're at a stage where we're just trying to catch up for a second. We just hired a chief operating officer, just hired a director of brand and marketing, and we're really excited for these individuals to join our team and really help build the foundation that we haven't necessarily had the chance to build over the past 5 years, so that we can really start to hit the pedal and re-enter our growth mode going into next year. So we hope to continue to grow not only in the Washington, D.C. area, but other parts of the entire country. We think there's a big appetite for the food and the experience that we are creating every single day, and we're just excited to share our culture and our food with more people. The next question is, can you discuss the role of technology and innovation in the operations and customer experience at Rasa, particularly in the fast casual dining model? Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting question, because technology and innovation for a long period of time hadn't really come to the restaurant industry at all. Even 5 years ago, when Sahil and I were first starting Rasa, if you asked our father's chef at his restaurant how he places his orders for fish or for seafood, he quite literally would pick up the phone, call the vendor, leave a voicemail. Then that vendor every morning at 5 a.m. when they come in would listen to the voicemail, and they would have maybe 50 different restaurants calling them, jot down what the orders were, and then put it into their system. And so, I think things are continually evolving and changing in a really great way in the restaurant industry. So, things that we've done is now we've partnered with a new app called Choco, because we have, unlike larger brands, we have a large number of different vendors. We buy yogurt from one vendor, we buy Indian spices from one vendor, our chicken and our lamb come from one place, our produce and different things like that. As a lot of these, fast casual restaurants grow, they go to larger vendors which stock everything for them. In the case of a Chipotle or a McDonald's, but with us being more of a smaller restaurant, we have a number of maybe 15 to 20 different vendors that we use for different items. And that can be tough for our team to try to keep track of. If I need to place a new order, who do I call or who do I email? And so this one app that we use now called Choco puts everything into one place, into one app. So any of our, assistant managers or general managers can go into the app and they can place an order based off an order guide, and it'll automatically send emails to the different vendors based on what they ordered. It then creates a chat feature where if the vendor's out of something or they have any questions, it creates almost like a text message dialogue between the vendors and between our team. And so that really helps make that process easier, and the less time that our team spends dealing with vendors or placing orders allows them to focus more on the experience for our customers in the restaurant. And so, that's kind of how that all ties together. There are, a number of new technologies that are coming out, particularly for the fast casual dining model, where, as we're seeing the surge of people using, apps to order food, we actually just launched our own app on the marketplace where people can order for pickup or delivery, and that actually ties into our loyalty program. And so if you order through the app or you order through our website through online ordering, you're now enrolled into our loyalty program. And so that really helps, increase the frequency of our guests, allows us to reach out to this audience when we're launching a new menu, or we're doing a promotion for a holiday. It allows us to kind of automate email campaigns so that if we see that, every time a guest comes, they always order a mango lassi, we can have automated systems set up, which actually email them saying, hey, we noticed you haven't been here in a while. Here's your next mango lassi on us, and adds that reward to their account. And so there's this whole, technology and email marketing that kind of also, links together. The second thing is that now that we have a lot of third-party delivery companies, when our father's restaurants, and even just 4 or 5 years ago had Uber Eats or DoorDash, whenever we would get these orders in from these platforms, they would come in on a tablet. Then you would have to have a host at the restaurant read the tablet and manually enter in that order into the kitchen or restaurant's POS system, which would then be fed to the kitchen to produce the order. And that often led to a lot of errors, or if the host was busy, they forgot to enter in the order, the driver comes to pick up the order, the food's not ready yet. And so now there's a new system where everything is automatically integrated. If you place an order through a third-party delivery company, it automatically syncs into our system. There's no manual entry, and the ticket prints out in our kitchen. Our team makes the meal, and then the driver comes and picks it up. So I think there's a lot of new technology coming to the restaurant industry. I'm still learning about new things every single day, so it's a pretty exciting time. The next question is, what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs looking to enter the restaurant business, especially in the fast casual segment? Yeah, so I think for anyone who's thinking of launching a new business, whether it's in the restaurant industry or not, I think oftentimes people are skeptical, thinking maybe it sounds like it's too risky for me, or I'm not ready to leave my comfortable job and things like that. I think what really played a large part for Sahil and I in leaving our corporate careers as investment bankers and consultants to try out something that could most definitely fail was to think about what's the worst thing that could happen. And so when we kind of boiled it down to that, we thought, okay, we're 24 years old. We're going to quit our, high paying corporate jobs to start our own restaurant. You know, restaurants are tough to run. They don't necessarily always are successful, but what's the worst thing that can actually happen? And so we're like, okay, we're going to quit our jobs. We're going to try this out. We're going to do it for few years. The restaurant doesn't work. We fail. Okay. Now we're 29 or 30 years old, but we've gained so much experience from going through that like process that, we can get another job from there. And, not everyone has that opportunity per se. We were lucky in the sense that we didn't have any families or children to support at that time. But I think often for people who are looking to take that leap, there's a little bit of this fear. And I think when they really try to think about what's the worst thing that happened, they realize that the worst thing that could happen is actually not so bad, and that will allow them to kind of take that leap and kind of go for it. I think with the restaurant industry, I think there's a lot of glamour around it. A lot of people are like, oh man, I've always wanted to own my own restaurant or my own bar. And I think, for anyone looking to like do that, they should work inside of a restaurant. It is, it's long. It is long hours. It's grueling work. If you ask both Sahil and I, oftentimes, we are, co-CEOs and founders of the company, but we do everything from the front door as a doorman to all the way in the back as a dishwasher. And I think that's the only way to be successful in this industry, is that you have to be able to roll up your sleeves. You have to be able to get in there with your team. You have to demonstrate that you're willing to do every single job in the entire restaurant. And that also helps you just understand, what your own team is facing, what challenges are they having in all the different roles inside the restaurant, and allows you to really help them. But if you, expect to open up a restaurant and just sit in the dining room and enjoy the food and just kind of pop in, it's probably not the right move for you. And I think we're coming up on time and getting to the last question. Is what is your personal favorite dish on the Rasa menu, and why do you love it? So, I've been eating the same food for the past 5 years, almost every single day. So, I probably go through some different phases where there's different items that I like for a certain period of time, and then I switch. The way the Rasa menu is structured is basically we have 7 signature bowls. So if it's your first time here, you're not sure which combinations of the different items that you want to combine together to make your meal, you can choose one of these selections. So the one that is my favorite is called the open sesame. And basically it's a bowl with white basmati rice, lamb kebab meatballs, peanut sesame sauce, charred eggplant, a few fresh cold toppings on top. And then we have a mint cilantro chutney and a mango coconut yogurt to top it off. And, I really love this dish because you get the nuttiness and the warmth from the peanut sesame sauce. And I think the lamb kebabs that we have are extremely delicious. So that's, one of my favorite dishes on the menu for sure. But yeah, so, I think we're wrapping up on time. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, for listening to my story and the story about Rasa. It's been a pleasure to share that with you all. I hope you all have the chance to come and try our restaurant at some point soon. And again, I also want to thank the American Center for Moscow for putting this together. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great evening.